Zach, thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate your time.
Of course.
Congratulations on the presents. Um,
Thank you.
Very unique movie as far as the storytelling, and I felt the music obviously plays a really big part in it. Tell me a little bit about your work on it as a composer.
Sure. So I'd worked with Steven Soderbergh on a mini series that he directed a couple years ago for Max called Full Circle, and that was the first time I'd worked with him in a directing capacity. He'd produced a docu-series that I worked on a few years prior to that, and uh, and the process was pretty similar between Presence and Full Circle, but Full Circle was really the first introduction I had to his world and working directly with him and what his process is like. And it's truly unlike any collaboration I've ever had. The fact that he is the director, he's also the cinematographer and the camera operator and the film editor means that as a composer, you're really, for me at least, for the first time, I was really working one on one with one person, and that was it. And in the case of Full Circle, I I was hired pretty early in the production process. So he was shooting, and I had started writing music and sending batches of music every week over to him, and he would kind of experiment with that, and he would drop it in, and he would send me back completed scenes with music, and that was my intro to his process. It was a really cool way for a composer to be involved early on and to feel like, for me, the first time that for me, it felt like the first time that my work was really a part of the production process and not just one element that's like slapped on at the end of post production. So with Presence, it was very similar, although, Full Circle, he was shooting for probably 2.5 months, and on this, he shot for about 11 days. So it was similar, but in a way, way time compressed version of the process. So I sent him some music, and he started dropping some stuff in, and he sent me the movie, and I got to see how he wanted to approach things and where he wanted music to be placed in the movie and how he wanted it to function.
Well, it's interesting because in any film or TV show, music is just one of the big parts, of course, of the storytelling. But I feel like in this case, the music plays a bigger role because of the fact that his cinematography, of course, is key, and then we're looking for all the signs because it's being told from the perspective of a ghost. But also, we need the music to kind of help audiences um, get whatever mood the ghost is in. And I went back and listened to some of the tracks, and it's funny because even without the movie, just by listening to the music, I can remember kind of the scene we are, the room we were in, and what was happening. And it kind of that actually gave me a little bit more chills because it resonated. How do you develop that?
Yeah, it's interesting because obviously we're working within a genre, and this is it's a popular genre and it's a well-known genre, and I think an audience goes into a movie theater to see a supernatural thriller, and they expect a certain number of things to happen, and they expect the score to to exist in a certain stylistic world and to be providing certain things for them. In this case, all of those all of the feelings that needed to be imparted to the audience of there's a being in this house and there is something is afoot within these walls, all of those emotions were provided by Steven's photography. So the music didn't have to play that role, and he didn't frankly need any support from the music to provide that. So what that did for us was it allowed us to use the music in a way that's probably pretty unconventional within this genre, which is to follow the emotional part of the story. There's a lot going on with this family. There's a lot going on with the Chloe character. There's a sense of grief and loss on her part. And you're right, the one of the things that we tried to do was I think you learned pretty early on that this is not a violent being. And the music, I think, hopefully imparts that to the audience, that we're dealing with a spirit, but it's not going to murder everybody. Spoiler alert.
It's funny because just because of the genre and because of kind of what we've seen before in films like that, I almost felt like at times that is the music trying to deceive me here? Like, is there going to be a point where it's like, I got you, but because it was so calming and so well done, and you're just kind of in the flow of things with with the ghost. That there was at times where I was like kind of on edge, like I'm ready for you. I know you got something up your sleeve. It wasn't necessarily the case, but it once you put it all together, it's quite beautiful actually.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad, you know, it's funny you work on something like this and you take a swing that's something that's not normally done and you hope it lands for people. There's really no way for us to know. It's like, I write a piece of music and I go, there's no way for me to be completely objective. And you just go, gosh, I hope our intention comes through to the audience.
Yeah,
And it
and
sounds like it
yeah,
might be working.
there's part of the story that obviously I don't want to give up, but when you find out certain things as things develop, and then the reveal kind of happens, it kind of takes you back on the entire journey of the film. But then and of course we have the end credits that kind of with more kind of a little bit more freeing music. You kind of start unraveling everything that was going on, and it's pretty cool. It's really interesting.
Yeah, that's I'm glad that it came across that way. And again, I don't know if this really translates at least on a first viewing, but the piece of music that opens the movie when the ghost is giving you a tour of the home and you kind of get a sense of the setting and where bedrooms are located and where all the rooms downstairs are located. And there's a piece of solo piano music that plays. It's the same piece of music that comes back at the end, but this time it's performed by a string orchestra. And what was interesting to me was, this was Steven's idea to bookend the film with the same piece of music. But it was interesting to see how the emotional effect of the same notes can change based on the context in which you're seeing it. So in the opening, it's a peaceful kind of lonely piece of music that reflects solitude and kind of gives you the mood of the ghost. And then by the end of the movie, when it comes in, and again, I'm not going to obviously say what happens, but it feels a little bit more like an elegy, but it's the same piece of music. And so that was an interesting lesson that I learned that literally the same notes can impart a different emotion depending on where it's happening. And that's my job. I mean, it shouldn't be a huge surprise to me that where music appears in a movie can change its effect.
Yeah,
But I'd never seen it to such a degree.
yeah, and just on that alone, it deserves a second viewing, really, just to go in and explore that. Especially now that we're talking about it, I'm kind of excited now to go back and to listen to it again, see what else I can catch.
Yeah.
Um, as a composer, I mean, you're working on a bunch of different genres. I know that you've also worked on Fraggle Rock, on Wizards of Waverly Place, and others. Um, do you enjoy the change of pace? Do you enjoy being able to work on different genres, different types of projects that kind of allow you to really use every tool in your arsenal?
Absolutely. It's one of the main reasons that I wanted to do this job as a career. If I was doing the same thing every day, I'd rip my hair out. It's great to be able to jump from, like you're saying, like a straight up TV comedy series to something like Presence, which is on the complete opposite end of the spectrum stylistically. And for me, doing Fraggle Rock and Wizards Beyond Waverly Place, it's I'm working with great people, and that's as I get older, that's so much higher on the priority list. Is like, are you surrounded with people that are just nice to work with and a pleasure? And it's true on both of those projects, but also it allows me to kind of get back to my roots. I grew up as a rock drummer and a metal drummer. I'm a self-taught guitar player, and I play all the guitars on those shows, and it's it's just a really great change of pace to to get back to that part of my musical life.
So you're in a metal band. I would love going to metal shows. What you're in a band? I'm assuming then.
I know I was, when I grew up, I was in like a death metal band, and I was in a the band Primus. I was in a Primus clone band,
Okay.
That's the stuff I was into when I was 14, 15 years old. And I grew up outside LA, and my bands when I was in ninth, 10th grade would play in these rock clubs. And I was way too young to be a part of all that, but
I
we
gotta
kept it.
I gotta tell you, if there's one thing I love about metal music is that number one, I enjoy the music, but number two, they're so inexpensive to go see five or six bands a night that where my buddy and I we would here in I'm in Central California, so
Yeah.
our local place is called Spencer, not Spencer's, Strummers,
Uh-huh.
and I mean like 35, 45 bucks, we can watch five, six bands, some of them local, some of them traveling,
Yeah.
and you're just in a vibe with a lot of people who love music, and the drummers are always one of my favorites.
Yeah. That's great.
So one thing I do want to ask you, because you're working on so many genres, and maybe a couple of key points, because then maybe you can talk about your process all day. Regardless of the genre of what you're working on, what are some of the first steps you take when you enter a project?
Yeah, it's a good question. The for me, and you can talk to my wife or any of my close friends or colleagues, the first thing that I do is I have a panic attack. I just at the beginning of a project, I'm just a ball of anxiety because in my mind, this will be the project where everyone finds out that I'm a fraud and that I don't know what I'm doing. And then I have to get over that. And sometimes it happens quickly, sometimes it doesn't. It's a it's a matter. It's always really exciting to get the job, and then you sit down to start it, and you go, "Oh my God, where are these ideas going to come from?" And Shane Black, who is a direct writer director, I'm a big fan of. He said, and I really identify with this. He said something similar to, you have no ideas. You think it's all going to come crashing down, and then you come up with something that's good enough to distract you from your insecurities, and you just follow that lead. And that's really true for me too. I get down and I just got to get something out. I got to put my fingers on the keyboard and just spit something out, good or bad, horrible, great, doesn't matter. And then I have somewhere to start from. And this is just maybe too much information into the tortured creative process, but that's really it. And talking about different styles, it's the process is really the same for me every time. It's at the end of the day, it's the job is notes and rhythm underneath a visual medium, and you're just trying to support a story. And that's true whether it's a Disney sitcom or a supernatural thriller or a historical drama. It's all the same job. And so for me, I have to just remind myself that that's the goal. I'm a small piece of a much larger whole. And how do I fit into that and just get some ideas going that are going to feel like they belong within that story?
Yeah, because I'm guessing that you at least have the foundation of, okay, this is going to be a family show. Like you said, this is a supernatural thriller, so you can kind of put away a couple of tools that, all right, maybe we won't use
Right.
these times. I want to ask kind of a fun question. What is the weirdest place you think of that that you've drawn inspiration from for some of your work?
Oh, the weirdest place. It's the other day I was driving and there was a clicking sound in my car, which normally drives me insane. I'm the guy I'll pull over and open up the trunk in the back and just figure it out so I don't have to listen to it. But in this case, it was kind of a funky rhythm and it kept repeating. And while I haven't applied that yet to an actual piece of music, that actually happens all the time. I can I can be standing outside and you hear something, you hear a bird chirping, or you hear any sort of a sound, and it's just something that can just kind of get the creative flame lit, and inspire you to do something that you never would have thought of if I hadn't heard that bottle rattling around in the back of my car.
I asked that because it's interesting to think that, I think artists, especially musicians, they must have kind of way more of like an ambient or satellite to pick up a lot more sound and noises than maybe me or anyone else might, like you said, just throw away as an annoying sound, but you're able to somehow harness it and end up being part of a masterpiece of some sort, and that's cool. That's really cool. So it's one of the fun parts of getting to chat with you.
Yeah, I'm always desperately on the hunt for inspiration, so I'll take anything that comes my way.
Zach, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate getting to spend a few minutes with you. I think Presence, well, great job, amazing. Really, fits that film so well, and I cannot wait to see what you do next.
Thanks so much. It was a pleasure to talk to you.